we don't think about ourselves this way, but one thing that, that's really important, a major constraint, I would say biologically a constraint on health and also evolution, is metabolic efficiency. So whenever we get sick with a metabolic illness like diabetes or heart disease or some cancers or depression, those are all Alzheimer's disease. Those are all metabolic. Those all have a metabolic basis. It means that your brain is running a body budget which is really, really, really in the red, like a big deficit. And for one reason or another, maybe because you've been paying little taxes all along, that you haven't been sleeping enough, or you haven't been eating healthfully, or maybe there are other stresses. Again, cortisol is not a stress hormone. It's a hormone that just gets glucose into your bloodstream quickly because your brain believes you will need to do something effortful. Like when you drag your behind out of bed in the morning, right before that happens, you have a flush of cortisol because, your brain is predicting that you're going to get up and move, and you need glucose to do that. So
hold on. So it's like an energy, right? Like you're saying, like what's happening in here in the brain, the metabolic thing, like, and that's a way I've thought about stress in a long time, or even anxiety, is that it's like an energy, right? Like there's energy going to your muscles and things like that. And if it's coming in a time where you don't have an outlet for that energy, sometimes you just have to like get out that energy, right? Like
sometimes you do, because actually it's really bad for you. If your brain predicts that you have a big metabolic outlay coming, like say somebody is rude to you, or, something happens and you feel yourself get really tense. What's happening is that your brain is preparing you for a big metabolic outlay. Now, if you don't take that outlay, if you don't do anything with that, you still have all of those chemicals circling around. And if that happens too often, your cells get insensitive to cortisol, which means that you're sort of tinkering with the natural mechanism for using energy. And it is, if it goes on for long enough, your immune system gets involved and you get sick. You get sick with some metabolic illness. And if that goes on for long enough, even without a direct symptom, your brain will stop spending as much, right? And what does stop spending mean? That means moving less, or maybe not at all, and not learning, meaning just going with your predictions and not taking in any new information that you didn't predict, which is what we call learning, when you take in new information that you don't predict. And that's depression. And when that goes on for too long, like a really long time, even without a symptom, your brain will then start to find other ways to cut its budget, like killing its own neurons, which is Alzheimer's disease.
That's where that saying comes from, like, if you're not growing, you're dying, right? In some ways, right? Yeah.
Well, right, exactly. Yeah. I mean, and your brain really very much is a use it or lose it kind of an organ. And of course, none of these things happen like immediately. That's the other thing. It's that they're these like little pernicious taxes that we pay. They're so small in a given instant that we might not even notice, but they add up over time. It's kind of like, when you have like water dripping on a metal pipe, it doesn't affect the pipe the first time, the 10th time, the 100th time, but eventually that dripping water is going to bore a hole through that steel. It's just going to take a long time. And that's exactly the way your metabolism works. That when you have a drag on your metabolism, when you're paying a little tax because things aren't as efficient as they need to be, when you're not sleeping properly, whatever the reason is, it adds up over time. And this is true for adults, and it's really true for kids. So, for kids, any kind of childhood adversity, if it's persistent, will increase the likelihood of illness in your children when they become late adolescents and adults. It's just really, really, really important that people understand this. I mean, listen, if you sleep properly and, eat healthily and, knit or whatever, you could still be depressed. Bad things can still happen. Right. But the point is that they're less likely to happen. If you find ways of just taking care of your body budget, it will let you care for your children better. And it will also let you be a little more compassionate with yourself, which I think, frankly, there's a lot of discussion about being more compassionate with each other. And I think that's important and we should be. But I also think it's important to be compassionate with yourself, especially for mothers. And if you can do that, that is, I think, it sets you up for more success in your life, whatever that means to you.
Catch new episodes of the Mindful Mama podcast and other free resources, including the Mindful Mom Guide at mindfulmamamentor.com. You can listen to every back catalog episode, including interviews with Dr. Dan Siegel, Janla Van Zant, Sharon Salzberg, and get meditations, join our private Facebook group, and more. Go to mindfulmamamentor.com now. I'll see you there.